In Game of Thrones, the great houses of Westeros are the Starks, Greyjoys, Tullys, Arryns, Lannisters, Tyrells, Baratheons, and Martells. All these families are important to the story, but some of these plotlines are totally different in the books compared to the TV show, especially the Martells of Dorne. Dorne is a land of scorching deserts and red mountains, of scorpions, snakes, and oases. Dorne has its own distinct culture, because 1,000 years ago, a foreign princess called Nymeria led her people to migrate to Dorne. So Dorne has more equality for women. Dornish women have equal rights to inherit and rule as a man does. And Dorne is more relaxed about sex. Paramours and bastards and homosexuality are more accepted in Dorne. 300 years ago, when Aegon Targaryen conquered Westeros, Dorne was the only kingdom to resist him, using guerrilla tactics to escape his dragons. Dorne only joined the other kingdoms much later, and not by conquest, but by marriage between the Martells and Targaryens. So Dorne has a proud history of independence and defiance. The Martell words are unbowed, unbent, unbroken. 18 years ago, the king of Westeros was Aerys Targaryen, and the heir to the throne was Prince Rhaegar, the older brother of Viserys and Daenerys. Rhaegar married Elia Martell, the beloved sister of Doran and Oberyn Martell, and their uncle Luwin was in the Kingsguard. So the Martells were closely tied to the Targaryen throne, giving them lots of political influence and prestige. Rhaegar and Elia had 2 kids, future rulers of Westeros. But unfortunately, King Aerys was a mad, cruel tyrant, and Prince Rhaegar ran off with Lyanna Stark to have a prophecy baby, so Robert Baratheon fought a war to make himself king. Rhaegar and Luwin were killed in battle. Tywin Lannister attacked King's Landing, and his soldier, the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, raped and killed Princess Elia and her 2 children. Elia was going to be Rhaegar's queen. Her children were going to rule Westeros. But all that was lost, and King Robert married Cersei, so a Lannister became the queen instead of Elia. Elia's brothers, Doran and Oberyn, were furious and aggrieved. They lost their beloved sister, and her children, and their uncle Luwin, and lost their political prospects with the Targaryens. Ever since, they've wanted revenge against the Lannisters, and to get a Targaryen back in power. They want vengeance, justice, fire, and blood. But they don't get it right away. The Prince of Dorne is Doran Martell. He's a cautious, patient ruler who thinks carefully before taking action. Doran is full of pain and grief. He suffers from gout, a disease that causes swollen, painful joints, and he still mourns his sister Elia. So Doran sits in a wheelchair in a palace called the Water Gardens, watching children play. The kids remind him of his responsibility to protect the people of Dorne. He wants revenge against the Lannisters, but he also wants to protect innocent lives. So Doran won't start a war that he might lose. Doran plays the Game of Thrones to win. Oberyn is the opposite to Doran. Known as the Red Viper, he's dangerous and unpredictable, provocative and passionate, a warrior and a womanizer. At the age of 16, Oberyn had sex with Lord Ironwood's paramour, and they fought a duel over her. Oberyn used a poisoned weapon, so Ironwood was killed, which was a problem because the Ironwoods are the second most powerful house in Dorne. To prevent conflict, Doran gave his son Quentyn to be fostered with the Ironwoods, and Oberyn went overseas for a while, fighting as a mercenary, studying as a maester, and fathering bastards all over the world. So, Doran and Oberyn are very different, but Doran says they work together closely. He says if Oberyn is a viper, Doran is the grass, hiding the viper before it strikes. In Book 2, Westeros is at war, and King Joffrey needs allies, so Tyrion Lannister offers an alliance with Dorne, and Doran accepts. Princess Myrcella goes to Dorne and is betrothed to marry Trystane, Doran's younger son. Myrcella and Trystane are young kids in the books, and they develop an adorable, innocent friendship, but soon their families' feuds threaten their peaceful lives. Tyrion invites Doran to come to King's Landing and join the small council, but instead of cautious, patient Doran, the Red Viper arrives. Oberyn demands justice for the death of Elia, and wants vengeance against Gregor and Tywin. So in Tyrion's trial by combat, Oberyn fights the Mountain. He wounds Gregor with a poisoned spear, but Gregor kills Oberyn. It's not clear what Doran and Oberyn's plan was here, but this attempt at justice just makes things worse. Oberyn's death inflames the Dornish people into uproar. They want war against the Lannisters to avenge Oberyn and Elia, and leading the call are Oberyn's daughters, the Sand Snakes. Oberyn had 8 bastard daughters by 5 different mothers. They all have different personalities and skills, but they all have Oberyn's viper eyes. The eldest, Obara, is a warrior, strong and fierce and angry. Nymeria is beautiful and ladylike, but deadly with hidden blades. Tyene seems innocent and sweet, but she's an expert with poisons. After Oberyn's death, the snakes come to Doran and demand war. So Doran imprisons the Sand Snakes to keep the peace. It seems like Doran is playing nice with the Lannisters. People think he's just too weak and afraid to avenge his siblings. So Doran's daughter takes action. Arianne Martell is Prince Doran's heir. She'll rule Dorne after he dies. But Arianne feels that Doran doesn't trust or respect or love her. He never shares his plans with her, and never teaches her to rule, and never arranged a good marriage for her. Arianne believes that Doran wants to make his son Quentyn his heir instead of her, and Arianne refuses to be cheated of her birthright. So Arianne starts a secret plot. She plans to crown Myrcella as Queen of Westeros, as a rival to King Tommen, to provoke war between Dorne and the Lannisters. This war would give the Martells their vengeance, and would position Arianne to rule Dorne, instead of Quentyn. So Arianne seduces Myrcella's guard, Sir Aerys, and she and her friends take Myrcella, but she's caught by Doran's guard, Ariohotar. Sir Aerys is killed, and this emo asshole Darkstar attacks Myrcella. Darkstar cuts off part of Myrcella's face before fleeing into the desert. So Arianne's plot goes terribly wrong, and it turns out that the whole thing was based on a misunderstanding. Doran doesn't hate Arianne or want Quentyn to rule Dorne. Doran has plans for Arianne. It turns out that all this time that Doran avoided war and made peace with the Lannisters, he was secretly planning revenge. He's worked at the downfall of Tywin Lannister since the day they told him of Elia. Doran reveals that after Robert's rebellion, the Martells made a secret pact with the Targaryens to marry Arianne to Viserys Targaryen. The plan was that the Martells would help Viserys take back the throne and destroy the Lannisters, for vengeance, justice, fire, and blood. But since Doran was so cautious and patient, he didn't want to risk war until Viserys was ready and had an army. So for like 10 years, Doran didn't tell Arianne or Viserys about the marriage pact, and Doran didn't help Viserys and Daenerys while they grew up on the streets of Essos. Viserys died never knowing about the marriage pact, and Doran's secrecy just alienated his own daughter to the point where Arianne plotted against him. So Doran's plan failed, but now that Viserys is dead, Doran has a new plan. Instead of Arianne marrying Viserys, he'll have his son Quentyn marry Daenerys. That way, Dorne can help Daenerys take the throne and get vengeance on the Lannisters, and Quentyn and Daenerys can be king and queen of Westeros, while Arianne can rule Dorne. It's a nice plan, but like the previous plan, it's a fucking disaster. Quentyn Martell goes on a long and dangerous journey to Meereen to marry Daenerys Targaryen. He tells himself it's a grand adventure, like the heroes in the stories. A young prince and his friends travel to distant lands to marry the most beautiful woman in the world. But Quentyn learns that adventure stinks. His best friend gets killed by pirates. He's forced to join with mercenaries and to fight in war-torn Astapor. The whole journey is traumatic and horrible, and when Quentyn finally meets Daenerys and offers to marry her, she laughs. Because Quentyn's nickname is Frog, and Daenerys knows fairy tales about frogs who turn into enchanted princes for their true love. But sadly, Quentyn is neither enchanted nor enchanting. Quentyn isn't a handsome Prince Charming. He's short and awkward and kind of fugly. His personality is like his father's. He's sensible, dutiful, and dull, while Daenerys is attracted to hot bad boys with blue beards like Daario. Quentyn says Dorne will help Daenerys take Westeros, but Dorne is no help to Daenerys now. She's busy trying to bring peace to Meereen. So Daenerys marries Hizdahr instead, and then she fucks off on a dragon and disappears, leaving Quentyn feeling like an idiot. He crossed half the world to marry Daenerys. If he goes home without her, he'll disappoint his father and fail his country. So Quentyn decides to be brave and bold like the heroes in the stories. He plans to steal one of Daenerys' dragons, and to fly it to find Daenerys, and to win her heart, and take her back to Dorne for fire and blood. But it turns out that being a brave young prince is not enough to tame a 10-ton fire-breathing lizard, and Dany's dragons burn Quentyn alive. Quentyn's last word is, "Oh." So, life is not like a fairy tale, and another Martell plan for fire and blood ends in disaster. Back in Dorne, Doran doesn't know that his son is dead. He's still waiting for Quentyn to come home with Daenerys and fire and blood. A Targaryen does land in Westeros, but it's not the Targaryen he was expecting. In the books, there's this kid called Young Griff. Varys and Illyrio claim that Young Griff is Aegon Targaryen, the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Elia Martell. People think that Aegon died in Robert's Rebellion, but Varys claims that they secretly swapped out the baby so some other baby died and the real Aegon survived, and Varys and Illyrio have a conspiracy to make this Aegon king of Westeros. There are hints that this Aegon is fake, that he's not really Elia's son. Go watch the Varys video. But real or fake, Aegon could take the Iron Throne. His army has taken some castles, and Tommen's throne under Cersei is weak. So Aegon asks Doran for an alliance. Doran desperately hopes that this kid really is his long-lost nephew, Elia's son. But Doran is cautious, and wants to make sure that Aegon's legit, so Doran sends Arianne to check him out. After her plot with Myrcella, Arianne seems to have changed, to have become loyal and obedient to Doran. He tells her to just meet with Aegon and report back, to be patient and careful. But Arianne still has ambitions. Arianne feels jealous that if Quentyn marries Daenerys and they take the throne, Quentyn will be king of Westeros, while Arianne will only rule Dorne. Will she have to kneel to King Quentyn, she thinks? This sibling rivalry might lead Arianne to take bold action. Fans speculate that Arianne might YOLO it and suddenly marry Aegon, because if Aegon becomes king, his wife Arianne would be queen of Westeros, and she wouldn't have to kneel to anyone. But, like every other Martell plan, this might end badly. It's very possible that Aegon and Arianne will take the throne in King's Landing, but eventually Daenerys and her dragons will arrive, and she won't be happy to find a fake Targaryen sitting on her throne. Author George Martin has hinted that there'll be a second Dance of the Dragons, a civil war between Targaryens, meaning that Aegon and Daenerys might fight. One character has a dream that dragons are coming, and everywhere the dragons dance, the people die. So the ending in the books will be different to the TV show, but it seems likely that Daenerys and Aegon's conflict, along with Cersei and Aerys' wildfire, will cause King's Landing to burn. And if Arianne is with Aegon, she'll burn too. Like Oberyn and Quentyn, Arianne's desire for fire and blood may end in fire and blood. The Sand Snakes might also be doomed. Obara, Nymeria, and Tyene swear obedience to Doran, so Doran sends Obara with Ario and Sir Balon to go kill Darkstar, the edgelord who attacked Myrcella. It's 3v1, but Darkstar is dangerous, and he might steal Dorne, a legendary magic sword. We're warned that Darkstar might kill Obara. If Obara survives, she might go to nearby Old Town, because Obara's mother was from Old Town, and she seems to have some major mummy issues, because she now hates Old Town, says she wants to attack and burn the city. And interestingly, Obara's sister Sorella is at Old Town, studying as a maester at the Citadel in disguise. Sorella loves Old Town as much as Obara hates it, so it could be dramatic if Obara attacks the city, at the same time that Euron and his apocalyptic magic are approaching. Fundamentally, Obara is motivated by anger. She's chasing after something she can never catch. Maybe at Old Town or with Darkstar, Obara will be killed, tragically consumed by her own fury. Meanwhile, Tyene and Nymeria are going to King's Landing. Doran wants Tyene to infiltrate the High Sparrow's sept, and for Nymeria to join Queen Cersei's council. Cersei is about to go on trial for adultery and treason, and her champion is Robert Strong, the reanimated corpse of the Mountain, Gregor Clegane, who killed Elia and Oberyn. The Lannisters say that Gregor is dead. They even send Gregor's skull to Dorne, which raises the question, how does Gregor have a head without his skull? Was someone else's giant skull sent to Dorne? Or does Gregor now have someone else's head, or some gnarly necromantic clusterfuck under his helmet? Bran has a dream of darkness and thick black blood beneath a giant's helm. Maybe that'll be dramatically revealed during Cersei's trial by combat, because Nymeria says that if Gregor appears again, Cersei will be exposed as a liar before all the Seven Kingdoms. Nymeria and Tyene will be furious that the man who murdered their father still fights for the Lannisters. Maybe they'll take revenge. Nymeria says that she wants to murder Tommen, and there is that whole prophecy that Cersei's children will die. Nymeria will be perfectly placed on the Queen's Council with her hidden blades and with Tyene's poison, so maybe the Sand Snakes will kill Tommen, and maybe Myrcella as well, in a horrific, bloody act of vengeance. Maybe the deaths of her children will lead Cersei to burn King's Landing, or maybe it'll be Dany's dragonfire, but either way, in the flames, Nymeria and Tyene's obsession with vengeance may end with their deaths in fire and blood, just like Oberyn and Quentyn and Arianne and Obara before them. All of Doran's plans for vengeance, justice, fire, and blood go terribly wrong. Partly because he's too cautious and too untrusting. Barristan says that Doran keeps his secrets too well. And Doran waits too long. Doran's first line describes the orange trees in his water garden. The blood oranges are well past ripe. He waits too long, so they fall and splat on the ground. If Doran had attacked the Lannisters earlier, while Tywin and Gregor were still alive, then maybe the Martells could have gotten justice for Elia's murder. But now that Tywin and Gregor are dead, they can only get vengeance on Tywin's family, who had nothing to do with Elia's murder. At this point, a war for vengeance will only cause more death and suffering. Oberyn's paramour, Ellaria, says that vengeance is a terrible cycle of violence. Oberyn died avenging Elia. Now the Sand Snakes want to avenge him. If they die, will their younger sisters have to die for them? There's no meaning in death. Having Gregor's skull doesn't make Ellaria happy. A skull can't warm her bed or make her smile. As Quentyn's friend tells him right before he gets himself burned, men's lives have meaning, not their deaths. Justice can be good, but Obara, Nymeria, and Tyene's obsession with vengeance by murdering children and starting wars can only end badly. And Arianne puts her country at risk for the sake of her pride and ambition. Ellaria says that doom and death are coming to Dorne. You can imagine Doran sitting in the water gardens when Quentyn's bones finally come home, and Doran will realize that his plans and plots have only got his family killed and possibly put his country at war with Daenerys. The water gardens were built for a different Daenerys Targaryen 100 years ago, so it'd be poetic if a Daenerys Targaryen came and burned the water gardens to the ground. Maybe all the innocent children Doran had tried to protect will burn, and Doran will finally realize that fire and blood only makes ash. The story of the Martells is a tragedy. It's about how injustice and pain can lead to more injustice and pain, but there is still some hope. While the other Martells and Sands fight for fire and blood, Sorella Sand has been kicking it in the Citadel, learning math and magic and shit. If she survives whatever clusterfuck comes to Old Town, maybe she'll come home to Dorne, pick up the pieces, and rule. A Song of Ice and Fire always leaves a little hope amidst the darkness. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Links to the artists are in the description, as well as some essays to read more about Dorne. Thanks to patrons Danielle LaPlante, Jake Rosenberg, Devora Lynch, Amber Leon Hellerman, Ziki Kazan, and Edith with the Man Hands. Cheers.